Well, today, the squeeze of inflation. Today, we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon and welcome to the Prudent Money Radio Show. I'm your host, Bob Brooks. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, Americans are getting hit hard by inflation. Jennifer White, Senior Consultant of Banking and Payments Intelligence at J.D. Power, is here to tell us about what she is seeing. Jennifer, thanks for coming on to Prudent Money this morning.
Thank you for having me. J.D. Power is thrilled to be part of this conversation.
Let's talk a little bit about J.D. Power. You know, that's a big brand name, and I know a lot of people who are listening have heard of J.D. Power. Maybe they don't really know exactly what you guys do over there, but talk a little bit about that.
I'd love to. So most people are aware of J.D. Power's role in the automotive industry. Overall, our goal as an institution is to be the voice of the customer in all the industries that are serving each of you listening today. So our financial services and banking and payments and wealth and lending practices aim to capture the thoughts and hearts and minds and sentiment of today's banking and payment customer and make sure that the institutions watching over our money are aware of the customer's needs.
Yeah, and you gotta just cringe. I know you look at all this data, and you just gotta cringe every time you see some bad press hit about one of the big major banks.
Well, certainly. We know that the most important driver of customer satisfaction with their relationship with their primary bank is the level of trust that they have at the bank. And if you think about the banks of years gone by and the idea of the community bank and that personal relationship that has been built, it is imperative for our banking institutions to realize just how quickly that trust can be broken.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what's going on today. You know, it's interesting because for a while now we've seen this trend where the middle class is slowly disappearing, and you're seeing a difference between those with financial means and those without financial means. And, of course, inflation is definitely making that evident. What are some of the concerns that you've uncovered you're hearing from consumers?
Consumers today many consumers today do not have long-term experience and strong financial literacy in how to navigate financial circumstances during challenging times. We have been, in many ways, benefiting from strong financial times for quite a significant period. You hear in the news all the conversation about the last time inflation was this high, and for most people that is a very distant memory, if only a twinkle in their eye, right? So what are customers concerned about? They're concerned about how do you save at the same time that you're managing increasing in pricing. If you are somebody who is having debt, how do you pay down debt if a recession is coming or is already here, depending on who you ask, right? How does one pay down debt in that type of environment? And, how do you plan for the future when the future isn't quite as clear as it may have been 3 or 4 years ago?
I got to laugh because this is one of the things that just has really annoyed me. If you've got a definition of what a recession is and that definition happens, you don't go back and say, well, maybe that wasn't a recession. Two quarters consecutive negative growth. That's always been a recession. I don't know. Sorry, I digress a bit. But it's interesting.
Well, you bring up a great point. Not necessarily, we could probably debate recession for a while here,
yes.
But I think the fact that our messaging is quite confused nationwide is one of the reasons why customers feel so uncertain about what the next best step for them to take is. And so connecting that back to the voice of the customer and what really satisfies them in their banking and payments relationship is when a bank can provide them with that solid footing with information that makes them feel reassured They might not be telling them what to do, but at least reassuring them that they haven't taken the wrong step.
Well, it's interesting, Jennifer. Today's version of inflation seems to me, and I've always said, has been way more complex today. Most people are talking, of course, about high prices, but we're really seeing a strain on the supply side, that the availability of essential goods are just not, are slowly, are not there. Talk a little bit about that.
So we have monthly pulse data where we're monitoring what is happening with consumers. And, our recent data from the last few months are telling us that 71% of U.S. consumers today know that the price of what they buy is increasing faster than their income. And that is true across, all spanning all parts of our financial health status customers. So, by that I mean the healthy consumer who may have long and short-term savings still in the bank. They probably have, a strong creditworthiness scoring, and they are likely adequately insured. They're feeling the pinch, as well as, on the other end of that continuum, the most vulnerable, which is, by definition, the opposite of the healthy. Also feeling the pinch are those that are in the middle. You mentioned the middle class earlier, and I don't know that I can directly say middle class here, but we think about financial health status as a key demographic. So if healthy and vulnerable are on the two ends, in the middle are overextended and stressed customers. The overextended customer is the one who probably has a 401k, but is struggling to get by month to month. That customer is the one who is most likely to be using banking services today, to be most likely to be trying to actively manage what is happening in their lives today. Whereas the stressed customer, they're doing okay month to month right now, but they don't have those long-term savings, and they're wondering where that next shoe is going to drop. So if we think of financial health status as the new demographic, and we know that those are now glasses that are coloring each consumer's experience, what does inflation mean? Well, it means something different to each one of them. Overall, we know that consumers are, going out to restaurants less and putting off buying their discretionary goods. But if we ask them what are some of the things that worry them about the future, 32% of customers overall said that if inflation continues to linger, they're worried most about supply chain issues and whether those will get worse. Now, that particular statistic is higher among healthier customers. If you're a customer that's on the lower end of that financial health status, if you're more unhealthy, which frankly 66% of the total U.S. consumer base is something other than healthy, right? They're more likely to be most worried about whether or not their food or housing costs will continue to increase to a point that are unsustainable for them.
Like you, Jennifer, I love statistics. I love the whole idea of analysis and that type of thing. Do you ever go through these processes and look at what your end result is and go, wow, I just cannot believe that number is that high?
Yes, all the time. Our goal at J.D. Power is to take the voice of the customer and truly represent any of the industries that we're serving. And today, it is very sobering to know that 66% of the U.S. consumer base is considered financially unhealthy in some way. When we started measuring this data about 18 months ago in earnest, doing this monthly pulse, it was I think the proportion of healthy customers was closer, I think it was 47%, which meant that we were only at 53% unhealthy. So in a period of 18 months, we have moved dramatically in the actual financial outcomes, the worry, all the things that go along with having those financial lens glasses on has just changed dramatically in a very short period of time. Stress levels about current financial situation are the highest that we've seen in the 18 months. Satisfaction with current financial condition is the lowest we've seen in 18 months. Now, I want to talk about the positive. right? So while that's all very sobering statistics, there's some great things happening. Maybe not great things. That's probably an overstatement. But what I'm encouraged by
Yes.
is that we also measure, how empowered the consumer feels to handle their financial situation. And that line has been, those numbers have been slowly declining. I can't deny that, but it's slowly declining. So if there is a positive spot in all this data that I've just rattled off to everyone, it's that many consumers still feel like, okay, I have a handle on it, and I know that there's support out there if I need it. Now, they feel a little less comfortable on how to actually do the things that I was talking about earlier, saving in a recession, paying down debt in inflationary times. But the empowerment numbers still remain strong, and that gives me hope.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I think one of the things, and you can speak to this, Jennifer, and what the data that you're seeing, is that, of course, financial literacy has been a real problem. And maybe we've hit a time where people are saying, you know what, I need to get information. I need to learn how to manage my money better, and this is motivation for me to do so.
I hope that is the case. Our data clearly tells us that customers are looking for trusted support to help them navigate these times. And our banking institutions in particular, but I think also our credit card institutions are doing the same, are really investing considerable amount of effort in building tools that'll help narrow the financial literacy gap. Awareness of those tools in the general, consumer base is increasing. We aren't seeing usage tick up as much as I'd like, but I think customers are taking comfort in knowing that if they open up that banking mobile app, they see that the information's there, and there's some form of comfort that is involved in just knowing that when the day comes and your worry gets too much, you know where to go.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. I'm talking to Jennifer White. She's a senior consultant of banking and payments intelligence at J.D. Power. Great company. If you want more information about the J.D. Power, go to jdpower.com. Just out of curiosity, and for the listeners, Jennifer, what if they go to the site, what are they going to find?
So J.D. Power measures customer satisfaction across any industry. So if you're wondering, not only about which cars have the strongest customer satisfaction scores, you can also find out how your utilities are performing. You can also understand if some of the things you wonder about the paint that you're choosing. There's information, on our consumer-facing website that helps you dig into that information.
There was one statistic, back to the stats, that stood out at me and was a little bit shocking, that 28% of consumers spend time worrying about whether they are going to have enough food. Now, that's a kind of a game-changer statistic there as far as what they're worrying about. And then it says this distracts employees on an average of 15 hours a week, which I no doubt. How do employers deal with that?
Well, I believe that, and I shouldn't even say I believe, J.D. Power's point of view is that financial health status is so important to the U.S. consumer today that all of our supportive partners in our lives need to be paying attention to this metric. So, we believe that, and other experts in this field, we partner with an institution called the Financial Health Network that takes a look at this data as well. We believe that employers taking care of their employees, and by taking care of, I mean offering financial health improvement programs, things like financial literacy, perhaps access to new savings programs which help customers build those emergency saving funds, offering connections or perhaps partnerships with banking institutions in order to improve different quality of life things that different banking institutions have already built. So budget estimators, automatic savings tools, spend analysis. Employers that invest in improving their employees' financial lives beyond just the very important salaries that they offer and benefits, is when this is included in their benefits package, we're building a stronger consumer base, and we are educating those frontline employees to then spread the news of what financial health could look like with the appropriate support. I'm bothered by the food insecurity data that we have as well. The numbers that you mentioned are reflective in our data. The good news I'm seeing in that Pulse monthly data is that the proportion of customers that are entering into food insecurity programs is creeping up over time. It's not increasing at the same pace as worry about inflation or recognition of inflation. So that's another one of those bright spots in the data where I think consumers are worried about what could come, but I'm not seeing it actually play out in the behavioral data today, that the need for additional food insecurity program support is increasing.
You know, it's interesting. Of course, Americans are looking at what their consumers are looking at what they're spending. They're cutting back, and of course, the great pastime that we call eating out that we all love to do is going to be in that chopping block. Of course, are we starting to see once again? You know, the restaurant industry went through COVID and had a tough time. I would argue they're still having a little bit of a tough time. But if especially takeout food, if we start to see this get cut back by consumers, the restaurant industry is going to have a real problem. What are y'all? I don't know if y'all look at that or not.
So what I do look at is what consumers are doing differently today. And in August, my most recent data measure, 52% of consumers tell us that they have reduced going out to restaurants. That number is high and could be troublesome for that industry. What I think is also troublesome in that number is that it spans all those financial health statuses. You know, when I measured that data earlier in the year, the changes, the behavior that customers were taking, it was focused, more on the, less financially healthy customer. But now we're seeing this activity, this managing living life with inflation impacting all financial health status. Today, we have, I think it's 83% of U.S. consumers indicate that they've done something in the last 30 days to manage living with inflation. That includes reducing going out to restaurants, putting off buying new clothes and shoes or home goods, that redecorating that so many people were doing during the pandemic.
Right.
A lot of that is slowing down. We also see in the list of activities, that consumers are indicating that they're switching to less expensive food options when they're in the grocery store, or purchasing less food overall, not keeping that pantry as full as maybe they once did, and buying more on demand.
Now, here is a subject that I got to have you back on at some time in the future, because this is something really would love to dive down into, and that's credit cards, everything that goes along with credit cards and credit card debt. Some of the reports that I've come across show that I believe I got this right, but the second quarter credit card debt was the greatest increase since they've been keeping that data for a second quarter. And it makes me wonder, and I'd love to hear what you're seeing in your data, but it makes me wonder, with credit card interest rates as high as they are on the average credit card, are people trying to fill the gap by using their credit cards just to get by? Surely they're not buying luxury items and paying 21%.
Our data is showing that there is an increased amount of use of credit cards to bridge gaps in customers' lives today. So the credit card data and the personal loan data that we have in many ways align. And they are in many ways looking to these options to help maintain a lifestyle that they've been living, right? while the world around them is changing. And if we pivot and we say, so you can use credit cards, and we focus on personal loans, one of the things that stands out to me in the personal loan space is that, we know that 1 in 5 consumers applied for a personal loan in the last year. And among that population, a third of them did it to pay off other debts. Another third said they were doing it to supplement their income due to lost wages, right? So that tells us that as credit card debt mounts, there's going to be the next step is how consumers actually handle navigating that debt. What consumers are telling us they need. What do they need in this space? Increased understanding of their creditworthiness. 17% of the customers today. So again, another almost 1 in 5 have no idea how their credit score is determined. Now, the flip side of that is that 4 in 5 do. That's great news, right?
Right, sure.
But we still have 1 in 5 that have no idea at all. And of course, the financially unhealthy, the proportions are higher in that population, right? That population, those 66% that are unhealthy, are most likely to be using credit cards to bridge gaps. They're most likely to be using personal loans to help them get by. So, of those 1 in 5 consumers who applied for a personal loan in the last year, when we asked them in the end, was that the right decision for you? When we said, in the last year, did you end up better off at the end of the day? 42% said no. So the ways that customers are managing their creditworthiness at this point in time might not be in their best interest. And different products and services sound good. And there are many ways what consumers are asking for. Consumers will be asking for, give me a zero interest rate credit card, or allow me to get a mortgage with zero down, right? But are those really the best financial decisions for the consumer? That remains to be seen, and is worrisome in the use of credit in the current days.
Yeah, and it's been really interesting. I haven't followed what you guys are following, but just other resources down the personal loan front. It seems like that those are fairly easy to get. I got to wonder at some point where they're going to tighten those lending standards as things kind of start to deteriorate a little bit.
I wish I had a crystal ball. I have to believe, based on the experiences that we've had with overall consumer lending, that'll be the case. But I don't know for sure, right?
Well, Jennifer, it was so great to have you on the program. Jennifer is the Senior Consultant of Banking and Payments Intelligence at J.D. Power. And if you want more information, jdpower.com. Jennifer, it's great to have you on, and good luck to you.
Fantastic. Thank you for, giving me the opportunity to talk to consumers about financial health. I hope that this information has been beneficial, and that, all of you listening, take a moment to go check out what your bank has to offer.
Yes.
Because there's a good chance the support and reassurance you're looking for may be at your fingertips, and can get you started on a path to some financial security.
Great information, Jennifer. Thanks again.
Thank you. Take care.
Once again, that website is jdpower.com. I'll tell you what I love about what they do. We talk to a lot of resources to give us statistics, but those are kind of globally based. They dive deep into the details, and so very consumer-oriented and consumer-based, and really give you a good idea of what to do, how to make good decisions when it comes to consumer purchases and relationships you have with your bank, and things that could be available for you to get some help. Once again, jdpower.com. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. You got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.